Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you after 26 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. East African time. This is a very fast and only Sunday broadcast, but also it is the broadcast that wraps up the month of May and ushers us into the month of June 2026 as we near the halfway point of the year. So thus far, it's been a worthwhile journey. Thank you so much to all of you that have made it worthwhile, that have made it a point to be part of our conversations as things go. For where we've faltered, find it within your hearts to sort of forgive us or excuse us as we look to do better next time or as we look to improve as time goes on. This evening, we'll be talking about a range of things, including but not limited to the idea of the Arsenal Trophy Parade. We'll talk about Ibrahim Konate, among other transfer conversations. And then maybe, if the time does permit us, maybe we shall start to look towards the World Cup. Hi, Reluctant Kema. Good to have you back on the podcast. It's always a pleasure to see you around. I hope you've had a wonderful Sunday and that it's been worth every second bit of it. I want to say thank you so much to our usual suspects and semi-regular suspects, those of you that, make it a point to join us every single day. To the people with whom we share different spaces on our TikTok forums, thank you so much for your show of kindness. To extend the love from that side of the aisle to this, side of the conversation. But more importantly, I thank you so much for indulging me every time and whenever you can. The people that mention us in spaces where we are not, thank you so much. We do really, really appreciate your efforts. Anyways, so in as far as this evening is concerned, obviously, Ibrahim Konate has confirmed his exit from Liverpool, so we'll talk about that and what the implications are. And then we'll get to talk about Arsenal's massive trophy parade across London. I've been following the events from afar, but you'll indulge me as I have our audios tested just to make sure everything checks out perfectly well for purposes of a worthy broadcast. For those of you that have just joined us, welcome to the Football Tribunity channel. Robert Kesakos is my name. Kindly like the broadcast, but also please consider subscribing to the channel. For those of you for whom it's the first time here. Am I the first here? You're definitely not. You're most definitely not. You're among a group of others, but I think it was a Reluctant Gamer who joined us first. Anyways, oh, Jesus Christ. It troubles me that I can't even find this feed to have the audios tested, but I think we're good to go. If nobody's complaining about the audio, I'd want to assume we are good to go. Anyways, okay, come on. Hi, Santarius. Oh, Summer Banks, how are you doing? How has been your Sunday? It was nice having the conversations that we've had throughout the course of the day. So let me start with, should I start with the obvious or should I start with the part that some of you may not enjoy as much? I do not know. You tell me. Anyways, I'll start with the Arsenal. They had their trophy parade today, which is the actual climax of the season. We did witness them lose the UEFA Champions League final to PSG 4-3 on post-match penalties that proceeded a 1-1 draw. Congratulations, Team PSG, as Arsenal had their trophy parade in London, celebrating their triumph of the Premier League title. PSG on the other side were equally having their own trophy parade, celebrating their triumph in the UEFA Champions League. Most importantly, in addition to winning the French League 1. The reason as why I emphasize the UEFA Champions League, it's that sort of meal in every family that does not come very often as compared to one that you get to have every now and then. So for PSG, the UEFA Champions League never comes very often, and it's their second time of that triumph. So they equally had their own parade. Now, back in London, there was multitudes of people who lined up the streets of London from Islington to all sorts of places and all corners of the city in regards to the demarcations for where the trophy parade was bound to be had. They flocked the streets in thousands and thousands as the buses one including Arsenal players and the other, I think, a couple of I don't know if it's backroom staff or some selected few fans, but they were out there in the streets celebrating with their fans. Now, the thing about football is sometimes you do not appreciate it for what it is until you get to experience some of the crowds that it draws. A couple of weeks ago, okay, not even a couple of weeks, just about a fortnight ago, we started seeing these worldwide, literally, celebrations in the wake of Arsenal's triumph. And I would want to imagine if that it was any other club, at least the size and profile, or even bigger, that of Arsenal would be having the same sort of, celebrations. And it speaks to say that it speaks to the importance of high chess price. It speaks to show the importance of sport in our lives, and football in particular, how it brings people to closer together. Today, I've seen a photo make the rounds on X, apparently of United Trade. For those of you that are familiar with the name on X, apparently was photographed somewhere in London. Trying to enjoy Arsenal's trophy parade. And it reminded me of a quote that a lot of people mask their love in the form of jealousy or hope or hate in a way. So I think it was Will Beast who was trying to allude to that sort of thing, where people do not necessarily hate Arsenal. Their show of hate to Arsenal is love being masked about Arsenal. I do not know. I won't speak for everyone, but I found that a very, very interesting take of or perspective to look at things. So the crowds were there, they were happy, and really, 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 they get to celebrate in that manner. They get to witness their team in that sort of fashion for that big milestone for the first time in 22 years. Previously, they've had, trophy parades, but simply because they had won the FA Cup. When you go back to 2020, there was no trophy parade because it was COVID-19. When you go back to 2017, when they beat Chelsea in the finals, by 2-1, I think, they had their trophy parade. You go back to 2015, and then you go back to 2014, which were the most previous years in which Arsenal had won a piece of silverware. So, and we cannot put on the same scale. Never mind that the FA Cup is older. We cannot put on the same scale the level of importance a league title is. And some messages have been sent to say. I saw one clip from Declan Rice making the rounds, saying we are going to be back again. You either you ought to be there, and it sort of speaks to what I was discussing earlier, Ron, today I think I was with Media Star, United Den, and I don't remember who else, Dylan, I think, and somebody else, or a couple of other persons. So some questions were put to me, and I did say this, your guess is as good as mine, but I'd want to put myself in the shoes of Mikel Arteta. And I question myself, how do I motivate this group of players to go again next season? Because yes, they've won, but they've not won it all. There's still everything to win. So maybe this time around, Summer Banks, yes, but Summer Banks at some point you drop off. I understand. I've been led to believe that today network has not been on your good side, but I hope things will level up. I don't know if you're an Airtel internet user, because Airtel tends to misbehave anywhere between mid 6:30 p.m. until like 10 p.m. in the night. It tends to misbehave if you rely on Airtel internet. I do not know if that's your reality, but anyways, at one point you were part of that forum. So I labor my brain to think of how Mikel Arteta goes on to motivate that Arsenal side to tell them, look, you've won something, you've written yourself in the books of history of this club, but you can go a step longer than that or further than that. First of all, he's at a club that has never won the Premier League title back to back. When they won it in 98, it took them, I think, 3 more years in between for them to win it again. because then Manchester United, for which Summer Banks pays allegiance to, went on to win it in 99, 2000, and 2001, before Arsenal won it again in 2002. Then they skipped it 2003 because they lost it to Manchester United, and then won it in 2004. So, in other words, in terms of the Premier League era, they've never won the league title back to back. And by the way, speaking of winning it back to back, I think there's only 3 teams that have won the Premier League title back to back. That's Manchester United, of course, in the aforementioned years, and then they did win it 2007, 2008, and 2009. Then you go to Manchester City, who won it in 2018 and 2019, and then from 2021 to 2024. So, other than those 3 teams, there's no, of course, and Chelsea, 2005 and 2006. So, other than those teams, there's nobody else that has won it back to back. So Arsenal have that challenge in their hands. But then I also remind myself that Mikel Arteta, as Pep Guardiola's assistant, was part of that dressing room when Pep Guardiola was doing it. After winning the Premier League title with the centurion of points in 2018, they won it the subsequent year in 2019, beating Liverpool by single point when they finished 98 points, with Liverpool coming in second at 97 points. So that's going to be the challenge. Now, so challenge number 1 is to defend their crown. But because they've also not won the Champions League, and they've never won it in the history of the club, that's going to be their biggest challenge. I do not know where they will set their priorities at, but I would want to imagine that every piece of silverware will be a sort of a target for them, will be a go after for them, because yes, you may miss out on the UEFA Champions League, but wouldn't it make even more history if, let's say, you won the domestic double, a domestic double or a treble, where you defend the league title and maybe you win the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. So there's that. Or you never know, you go all in and win the UEFA Champions League. It's not a given that you win it, but you can still try. So the challenge on Mikel Arteta's part is going to be, how does he motivate this team to say, you've won something, but you cannot get satisfied at this point in time. When you're hungry for something, you do not get satisfied after the first bite. No, you eat until when you reach that point of satiety, as we define it in economics. When you start to, until that point, then you start to suffer diminishing marginal utility from the consumption of a product. I'll give you an example. I do not know if any of you does consume alcohol or beer or wine or whatever the case is, but for better sort of comparisons or reflection, let me use the example of fruit juice. Let's say you enjoy mango juice as much as I do. When you served your first glass, you'll enjoy it to the fullest. But after maybe 3-4 glasses, you will not be enjoying it as much as you did the first glass. So basically, Arsenal have only sipped the first glass. So they need to motivate themselves into taking in a couple of more glasses to fully enjoy this sort of period. And I remember it was a question in our multiple forums where it was put to people, do you think Arsenal can go on to dominate? They've never been dominant. Yeah, as hard as that is to believe, as big as a club they are, profile-wise, and all the pieces of silverware that they've gathered, it's not, they've not done it before. They've never dominated, because dominancy is after a given period of time. You must achieve certain things within a given period of time, and I do not think they've ever done that. They've been dominant before in the FA Cup. The FA Cup, they've done that. They've won it back to back before. It was the competition in which St. Charles Wenger succeeded the most. I think he collected as many as 7 of them during his tenure with Arsenal and things like that. So they must challenge themselves to doing better or to achieving bigger things than those they've achieved this season, which is only one major piece of silverware. But the question is, have they now crossed that line? Because a lot of us were questioning, asking and wondering, has Mikel Arteta failed to skip this swap, to jump over this final hurdle and make this team champions? Now he's done it. So the challenge is, where do you go from here? Because in his own acknowledgement, more than once, he did question his ability or whether he was the right person to guide this team beyond being just competitors. Now, fortunately for him, fate or destiny has answered that question for him before he bows out. So the question now becomes, are you going to write better history? There's a debate that a colleague of ours likes to have vibes on. For him, he's of a view that Mikel Arteta has no legacy at Arsenal. And he says in winning the Premier League title, he simply started the journey of writing that legacy. And I say, to the contrary, what he's not written is his legendary status with the club as a manager. But in terms of legacy, it's all there. Because the thing about legacy is that you do not necessarily need to win anything to have a legacy. It's as simple as that. For example, if you go back to your respective clubs, every player that has captained your team as full captain, forget this one that is handed the armband for one game or a couple of games, their legacy is that they captained that game for a period of time. So equally, Mikel Arteta and this Arsenal side, regardless of how many, I'll give you an example. Let me use the example of the youngest player in the squad, Max Dorman. His legacy is that he's won a Premier League title as the youngest Premier League player. That's his legacy. Even if he stopped playing football today, that will be his legacy from now on going forward. We have a Super Cup final between Enrique and Unai Emery. Anything about that? Let me get to that in a bit. And thank you so much, Summer Banks, for that kind reminder. It's something that my head may have not focused on in the immediate interim. So legacy is defined as such. What history writes about you, that's your legacy. Today, if you ask me to write something about Summer Banks, I simply write she's a Manchester United fan who likes to have a good laugh. That's the bit I know about her. But history-wise, that's what the ink will present. So maybe describe her as a friendly person in that sort of sense. So legacy is that simple. So, but whereas legendary status has to be something of bigger magnitude. I'll give you an example. Unai Emery has a legacy at Arsenal. And his legacy was, first of all, he managed Arsenal. That's for one thing. Two, he guided them to the 2019 UEFA Europa League finals. Yes, they lost to Chelsea, but he did that. And they finished fifth in the Premier League. That's his legacy. And then he was sacked the subsequent year. That's his legacy at the Emirates Stadium. Okay, Luciano Luis Santos says hello. Hello, Santos. Okay, now back to the conversation of the UEFA Cup, Super Cup. By extension, you take me to the conversation of Paris Saint-Germain. I've seen clips from last night of PSG fans celebrating across Paris, and I've been led to believe that the French police had to deploy up to 22,000 men and women in uniform just to contain celebrations. Why? Because apparently, when PSG fans celebrate, they just do not celebrate by marching in the streets. They go on to a phase of vandalism. I do not know if it's PSG fans that are actually doing that or it's opportunists that disguise themselves as PSG fans to then go and achieve their own ends. I'll give you an example. When you organize a protest or a strike, there will be opportunists that may join the strike for their own ulterior motives. And oftentimes you cannot control that when you cannot control the crowd. So you'll have those that have come to loot. You'll have those that have come to snatch a thing or two. Apparently they were destroying electric bikes, etc., etc., and a couple of other, I saw footage of some cars being burnt. Again, I do not know whether there is any form of joy that leads you to burn an item. I do not know. For example, in what world would I celebrate so much that I end up burning my neighbor's car simply because I'm celebrating? Make it make sense. In other words, it doesn't make sense. In what world am I celebrating a victory if it leads me to loot another person's business? Make it make sense. So that's why I stand to say I do not know with absolute certainty whether the people that were involved in some of the bad things of the day PSG fans, but at least it was during the PSG celebrations that some of these things happened. And like I've mentioned, they've had their own trophy parade today. So by extension, by the virtue of them winning the UEFA Champions League and Aston Villa having won the UEFA Europa League, the two sides have set themselves up for a UEFA Super Cup final. Now, last year it was between Tottenham Hotspurs and Paris Saint-Germain, and I think it ended 2-2 in normal time before I think Spurs lost out eventually to PSG. So Tottenham Hotspurs had a 2-0 lead in that one, but PSG found the courage to come in from behind and win it eventually. So it will be a tough fixture between two Spanish managers. That's Unai Emery, who is the most successful manager in the history of the UEFA Europa League, versus Luis Enrique, who now joins the realm of one of the most successful managers in the UEFA Champions League. He now has 3 of them to his name. That's as many as Pep Guardiola, by the way, because he won 2 with Barcelona and 1 with Manchester City. He did not win any with Bayern Munich. That's 1 more than Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. He won in '99, and then he won in 2008 with Manchester United. Despite losing, I think, 2 other finals in 2009 and 2011. I stand to be corrected if there's any other final that he lost. Then of course, Carlo Ancelotti is the most successful, 2 with AC Milan and 3 with Real Madrid. He joins the realm of Zinedine Zidane, I think, with winning the UEFA Champions League in 2016, 17, and 18. That's with Real Madrid. So that's the realm he's joined. So the UEFA Cup in itself will be a difficult game. Obviously, the UEFA Champions League winner is oftentimes the favorite to win the UEFA Cup. That's why you have the likes Chelsea have it, Liverpool have won it, Man City have won it, Real Madrid have won it, etc. So, unfortunately, I cannot give you the insights to the game in itself because we are far away from the game and a lot could change between now and then. And the reason for that is the transfer window, the summer transfer window. I'll give an example. Aston Villa have decided not to retain Douglas Luiz, so he returns to Juventus. One of their most prized assets in Morgan Rogers appears to be a target for many top sides, including but not limited to the likes of Arsenal. That's Morgan Rogers. Then I do not know what's going to happen with players like Yuri Tillemans. I do not suspect Yuri Tillemans will leave, but you never know. I do not know what's going to happen. Of course, Jordan Sancho will be leaving. Dubi Martinez or Emiliano Martinez, the Argentine goalkeeper, I don't know what will happen with that one. So a lot of pieces could have changed by the time we get to that. On the side of PSG, we know for an absolute fact that a good number of their players would be a target for giant teams across Europe if they were up for sale. It has been widely reported about Arsenal's interest as well as Chelsea and Liverpool in their interest for Kivica Kvaratskhelia, as well as a player like Bradley Barcola. Who knows what happens if those players decide, well, I think I've won it all with PSG. Now is the time to move on. You never know. Anything can happen. Goncalo Ramos said that he will be leaving Paris Saint-Germain at the end of the season. So again, you never know what's going to happen with that. Until then, we'll have to wait and see. So a lot of things may have changed by the time that game gets to be played. So you will indulge me that I'll then reserve my internalization of the game in itself. You never know. Who knows? Maybe by the time we get to that game, Luis Enrique is no longer in charge at PSG, or Unai Emery has decided to part ways with Aston Villa. I do not know with an absolute certainty. Yesterday, I was reading something. Was it yesterday or the day before? Hello, heartbreaking for Arsenal yesterday. That is SSB 2828. Hi, SSB. Yeah, heartbreaking for the Arsenal fans and all the minders, but it is what it is. Hard luck. Better next time. So, meanwhile, okay, I'll speak to that in a bit. So, I was reading something from, I think, from a Liverpool fan who was saying that PSG are going to win the UEFA Champions League, and as soon as that's done, they'll celebrate, and Luis Enrique will announce that he's leaving PSG and will be joining Liverpool. To the best of my knowledge, at least as of present day, or at least by the time of this broadcast, is that Liverpool's primary target is Andoni Iraola. He's the guy that they are speaking to at great length to try and get a deal for him to take over the reins from Arne Slot at Anfield. So unless that changes, we'll leave it at what it is. So, but the point I was trying to drive at is that a good number of things may have changed by the time the UEFA Super Cup gets to be played. Okay, SSB takes us back to the conversation regarding Arsenal. So it's looking more like Iraola. Yep, Iraola identity is Klopp-like. So I've had. When it comes to especially the rigorous training, at least from players like Antoine Semenyo. And remember, Mo Salah said they needed to return to that heavy metal football. So maybe in Andoni Iraola, they'll have the return of a Klopp in a different skin. So you never know. But just briefly back to the Arsenal. You say, I think Arsenal fans should still be proud. I think that's what I said yesterday. It's really, really hard to sit down and try and hammer out, try and find the positives in the wake of defeat, especially the level of defeat in the sense of it being a final where you miss out on the title, because it's defeat, you've lost out, you simply get those silver medals, and it is what it is. I do not know what those medals indicate. I do not know whether they say losing finalists or they say runners up, but most chances are it's runners up. At least I would want to imagine. So there's something to be positive about in terms of the overall performance and overall season, but it's often at times very difficult when you lose a final. When you find yourself at the semi-final and you crash out, I think it's an easier pain to take in than when you lose a final, because the distance between you and a piece of silverware and the trophy when you're at the semi-final is much longer than it is when you actually make it to the final. In simple terms, that's where, that's the seat in which I occupy to think of it that way, or in that manner, to say, yeah, you almost had it. You almost had it. It was there. You have to watch on as the other team lifts it. I think that's the pain part. But if it is any consolation, I know it was painful. Mikel Arteta said just as much. And I've seen a clip this today evening from Thierry Henry and said yesterday hurt. So it did hurt for many, if not all, Arsenal fans out there, and perhaps by extension, some well-wishers out there, if any. It did hurt that they lost. But the beauty for them is that because they won the Premier League title, at least they had a fallback position. And this is what I said. Regardless of what happened at the finals, they will be really, really proud of their season, that they won their most important piece of silverware this season, which was the league title. Because in my humble opinion, it was always going to appear like a sort of consolation prize if Arsenal had found themselves champions of the UEFA Champions League but had missed out on the league title. Why? Because they were in the driving seat of that one for much longer of the season than they were in the Champions League. Because with the Champions League, you're only in the driving seat during the league phase because you're topping things. As soon as it gets to the knockout stages, the jury is out there. It's 50-50. You can easily get knocked out by an underdog like a Bordeaux Gilmont. You can get knocked out by a Sporting CP. It could be a Bayer Leverkusen. It could be a Benfica. I do not know. It could be either any side that knocks you out. Even the most unlikely of candidates, it's not always the Giants that will be knocking you out. So until then, it is what it is. Okay, you say people are saying this was Enrique's hardest game in his career. He's coached all sorts of big games with many different players, but this was his most difficult. Well, let me try to find where they get that school of opinion. One, first of all, he's coached 3 Champions League finals. Against Juventus, they won by 3-1. So you could say they won easily, even though one of those goals came, I think, in stoppage time from Neymar. Last year against Inter Milan, they made it look easy. They made it look like a walk in the park. And when you remember how they got to their journey to the final, I would want to think that he's had more difficult games. For example, he got beat by Liverpool by goal to nil at Parc des Princes before winning by similar score in normal time or after extra time at Anfield, sending that game into penalties. Then against Aston Villa, it wasn't as easy as one would want to think of it. And against Arsenal over the two legs in the semi-finals, it wasn't easy. But yeah, yesterday was difficult, maybe for him. And you could sense it within the PSG sort of corridors when you looked over to him at the technical bench as well as to his players on the pitch. At some point, they looked devoid of ideas. They almost hit that space where they could pass for frustrated. Why? Because everything they tried to conjure out, it wasn't working when it came to creating chances. Obviously, at the end of the day, they had their chances. Some two, I think about two of them, which fell to Bradley Bacola, another fell to Vitinha, and I do not know the other. So, but besides, before the penalty, that's for about an entire hour of that game. Everything that they tried to find as a solution to break that Arsenal side down was not working or appeared not to be working. So it was difficult in that sense because Arsenal locked them out, and that their game plan was spot on. Arsenal's game plan was really spot on. And of course, when a game goes to the penalty kicks or to the spot kicks, it's a 50-50. It's a combination of both your goodness and your luck, but more importantly, your luck. Why? Because missing a penalty, you have as many chances of missing it as good many chances of you scoring it. So it's a 50-50. But in terms of 120 minutes, I do give Arsenal the credit. First of all, when you look at the final stages of the game, they literally had to play with a madness because Pierre Hincapié had his body there, but physically he could not carry on. You saw all of you must have seen him limp through the final stages of the game. Why? Because he had been injured, and then unfortunately Arsenal had used up all their substitutions, so they could not make a change. So, but somehow they managed to grind it out. They managed to lock in. And I remember at one point he fell down. He got done by Joao Neves before Martin Zubimendi intervened. And when he gets done, my pain point, I think, was what's his name? Gabriel Martinelli. I had been looking on in that moment, but, our players need to stop that stupid stutter step that Eze did. Most elite penalty takers do not do that anymore because it's so risky. I mean, it does appear to be risky. But you see, there's this thing. Oftentimes, when you find yourself in that sort of situation, you retreat yourself back to what you know best or what you think works for you best. Some of the penalty takers that I came to appreciate of time were not that were smart penalty takers, were those that went for power. Frank Lampard, Harry Kane, I've seen Victor Gyökeres take his penalties. For them, or for players like them, it's about the power. They're like, I'm going to blast this with as much power as I can, make sure that I keep it on target, and if the goalkeeper is going to have a hold of it or a touch of it, so be it, but I'd want it to pass through their hands if that is what it takes. So they go with outright power. Ivan Toney is placement, but he has simple run. I mean, I remember Paul Pogba taking the longest time to run the shortest run to take a penalty. Was it against Everton or some other team? I don't remember correctly, but I do remember that moment. You say Eze did that same penalty in the League Cup, and missed with Paris. Was it in the League Cup or was it against Liverpool in the Community Shield? I think it was against Liverpool in the Community Shield prior to the start of the season. Anyway, whichever it was, but yeah, because Alson Ramses Becker, caught that one. Gabriel Miss gave me John Terry vibes. I mean, yeah, by the way, for me, I said that as soon as he stepped up to take that penalty, when I saw it was him, I told my neighbor, it's 2008 all over again. Why? I had that fresh memory of John Terry sleeping in the cold weather and rains of Moscow when they went on to lose. Okay. Pogba made an ass out of himself at times, Loro. I think coaches nowadays don't like it. Well, as much as they hate it, it's the players on the pitch that get to execute those penalties. But like I've said before, I remember a point in time when Manchester City players, regardless of who got handed the penalty, if Manchester City won a penalty during a game, they almost always missed. And Pep Guardiola was being asked constantly, so who is now your preferred choice of a penalty taker? Because they were missing so many penalties, So for me, missing a penalty is very okay, is fine with me, especially if the goalkeeper makes a save. And it does not have to be a cheap save, the way I remember Brahim Diaz against Eduardo Mendy in the finals of the Africa Cup of Nations against Morocco, because he attempted the penanka. But you see, the thing about the penanka is that if you get it right, it's very beautiful. If you get it wrong, it appears like you're stupid. So the only players that I criticize are those that blast their penalties off targets. You say Roberto Baggio skied over the bar in 94, when 94 Brazil were, 94. Brazil won the World Cup in 94, right? It was 3-2? So, okay, I think I missed a comment. Yesterday, hard luck, bruv. That's Bogdan. Hi, Bogdan. Also, I do not think having Noni take a penalty was a good idea. Noni is not a good deal, ball specialist. So now, for me, the people have tried to make Brazil versus Italy penalties. I think it ended 3-2 in favor of Brazil. So people have tried to make a point of it to say attackers and midfielders are better penalty takers than defenders. And that may be true. That may be true based on what the data may show. But when it comes to missing a penalty, because I've seen even the most elite of players miss penalties, that's why I do not make a fuss about it. My only request of any penalty taker, that whatever happens, keep it on target. Keep it on target, because also I come from a space and school of argument where a lot of times when the goalkeeper serves a penalty, people are quick to say it was a poor penalty, as opposed to giving the credit to the goalkeeper to say that was a brilliant save. Oftentimes, it is the player who takes the penalty that gets criticized, and instead of giving the credit or owing the credit to the goalkeeper. So I come from that school of thought. So my desire or preference is such that as a penalty taker, as a player that is striking that ball, do whatever it takes to keep it on target. Because once you keep it on target, then you give yourself a chance. Otherwise, if it's off target, then you have no chance. Okay. Baggio was the best player in the tournament and Walt and Italy lost the shootout. So yeah, the best of players, I've seen Bruno Fernandes, Manchester United's captain and de facto penalty taker. I've seen him miss a couple. I saw Harry Kane miss a penalty at some point. Sergio Kun Aguero missed a penalty. So whether it's Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, though, those ones have missed penalties before, Speaking of penalties, 2008, Lionel Messi missed a penalty. So this idea of defenders versus forwards, Bukayo Saka, Jadon Sancho, and Marcus Rashford, all forwards, missed their penalties at the Euro 2020 that were played in 2021 on home soil at Wembley. So if they miss the penalties, you cannot lecture me about how defenders are poor penalty takers. Um, Verstappen, 33 Verstappen says Messi or Ronaldo, both great talents who have been lucky enough to see them play. I'm not one to choose one or the other because I appreciate them just as much. Okay. Raymond Kangumba says, hi, Arsenal won the Premier League trophy. Fans pride for the Premier League. Yep, that was a great one. You say Iraola is a done deal. He's the manager for Liverpool now. At the time of this broadcast, that was yet to be confirmed by any credible sources, but I know for a fact, or I have heard for an absolute fact, that conversations are continuing between both parties to try and iron out a deal to get that one done in as far as things go for trying to replace Anna Slot. Now, back to the UEFA Champions League. Adagula was voted the young player of the tournament for this season, or UEFA young player of the tournament. Then Kivisha Kravaskelia was voted as player of the tournament for his 17 XG. That's goals and assists. Sorry, not XG. 17 goal involvement for goals and assists combined in 16 games. Then Ibrahim Konate. So those were the awards. Then, of course, David Raya won the Golden Glove for the UEFA this season. And by the way, how many? I think he's only conceded what? About 2 goals from open play or 3 in the Champions League this season. Speaking of the Champions League, the official team of the tournament of the season is David Martin Maya, Gabriel Magalhaes, Marquinhos, Nuno Mendes, Marcos Llorente from Atletico de Madrid, Declan Rice, Vitinha, Kivicha Kvaratskhelia, Michael Olise, Ousmane Dembele, and Harry Kane. That's the UEFA team of the tournament. Then, okay. Gabriel is the heart and soul of Arsenal Football Club. Him taking a pen is not the worst thing. Exactly. It's not the worst thing. Exactly. So, anyways, so like it says as part of our headline, Liverpool earlier on today did confirm that Ibrahim Konate will be leaving the club as they said Liverpool can confirm Ibrahim Konate is set to leave the club upon the expiry of his contract this summer. Konate will depart with gratitude and appreciation for the contribution he made, and everyone at the club wishes him the best for the future. Now, remember, Real Madrid have expressed interest in signing Ibrahim Konate before, but they cooled down those interests in November, apparently out of respect for Liverpool. I do not know whether it was out of respect for Liverpool or they had a change of heart in terms of priorities when it comes to centre back. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jose Mourinho took him to Real Madrid because he's about the grit. He's about his physicality. That's how he defends. It's less about the art and skill of nicking the ball off of attack and what not. He's really, really about the grit, the physical muscle that he will present. And he himself put out quite the message to bid farewell to the Liverpool fans, saying, "Dear Liverpool, 5 years ago, I arrived as a young player with big dreams. Today, I live with memories that will always stay with me for the rest of my life. Representing this club has been an honor. We have shared incredible moments together with the highs and lows, trophies, challenges, lifelong friendships, and heartbreaking moments that will always stay with us forever. No more painful than losing our brother Diego Costa." That was that read part of his lengthy message to the Liverpool fans out there as he bid them farewell. Okay, Rio Dandy says, is Marquinhos the second most decorated footballer of all time? Second most decorated? I don't think so. Is he? I'd want to think that players like Dani Alves have one more. Lionel Messi, maybe? Oh, I'd want to think that I do not know how much Kingsley Coman has won, but Kingsley Coman is one of those very decorated players. He's literally won everything there is to win without always being the star of a tournament or a season. He tends to pop up at the right time and score important goals. Okay, hi Adash. You say Akraf Hakimi is not playing as expected. I mean, he did suffer that bad injury along the way this season, and yeah, he's not been at his absolute best, but no less one of the best right backs that there is in the world. Some news are saying that he is 3 trophies behind Messi. He surpassed Dani Alves. Okay, I'm yet to confirm that, but thanks for the update. If that is the case, I mean, I don't know. I'm still a bit on the fences about that one. I'd want to think that there are players that have won more, but he could be. I mean, he's been. It sort of feels like he's been at PSG for a lifetime because he's played with the Thiago Silvas, with David Luiz. He's played with Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He's played with Edson Cavani's, Angel Di Maria. It looks like he's been at PSG for a lifetime. I mean, I find Marquinhos better than Virgil van Dijk at this point all time. I say, wow, okay, that would be a hot take. I'm sure not many people may agree with you, but I sort of understand where you're coming from with that. To make that suggestion, I think a lot of Liverpool fans will disagree, but if somebody disabuses themselves of the bias that they may have or any inclination to either player, it's a worthy debate to have. It's a worthy debate to have, to say the least. Okay. Raymond Kangumba is talking about Ade Ezauzori to be signing for Newcastle. That's a wish you have. You say Joao Neves is a future prospect, and what's your thoughts on his performance? His performance yesterday, not very convincing, but I do not think a lot of PSG players had wonderful performances given the way the game transpired. Yes, they were dominant on the ball, but to little effect. So it was there and about, 50-50 or average performances, in my humble opinion, in a way. But Joao Neves is quite a game. It's quite a game. He can play as an 8, he can play as a 6. I remember at one point my worry was him joining Manchester City. Really, Pep Guardiola was still there. The kind of things that he's capable of doing on the ball, and with his diminutive height, he's quite very relentless. He's still very young and fresh. So very, very good player, Joao Neves. Do you prefer physically dominant strikers or skillful playmakers type strikers? Skillful players all day long. And the reason for that, let me tell you, my favorite player of all time is Ronaldinho Gaucho de Assis Moreira. That Brazilian, because my earliest memory of kicking a ball was never about the joy of the goal. It was about the kicking of the ball. My earliest memories of enjoying football was watching people dodge past others, play a good pass. That's about it. Now, evidently or cumulatively, the goal was a consequence of everything that happened prior to that. So my appreciation of the game came from all the beautiful things that happen in a game before we even get to the goal end. And that's why, for the sake of a player like Ronaldinho Gaucho, is that regardless of how the game ended, for his side, whether he scored, whether he assisted or not, whether they won, whether they lost, he always gave you a moment to remember in the game, in the game. So for me, give me a skillful player all day long, as opposed to somebody that is very physically dominant. Real Dandy, you say, in my opinion, center backs should never take the first 5 penalties in the shootouts. It has happened in the history that most of them have quite missed. Now, I respect that opinion and school of argument, but I would also like to demystify the argument to say any player, regardless of where they play in the pitch, can miss a penalty. I'll give you an example. When Nuno Mendes missed his penalty, the player subsequent to him that scored his penalty was Akraf Hakimi. And again, I remember telling my neighbor with whom this stranger of a lady, brown lady, I do not remember with what fashion of hair, but she had a dark, sort of a dark spot pimple on her face, which oftentimes we call a beauty spot. I don't know if that's what it qualifies for. I remember telling them that one is going in because Akraf Hakimi is a very good penalty taker. It's simply that. Look at Richard James. He's a defender, but he takes good penalties. So for me, it matters less where you play around the pitch. Okay. Who do you support? When you say who do I support, what do you mean? Kindly be a little more specific. Rio Dandy. I'm sorry to disagree with you, sir, but I prefer physically dominant strikers like Mario Mandzukic, Giroud, and Lewandowski. I understand where you're coming from. I understand your appreciation of that, and I respect it, being your preference. Mine is simply different. I'll go with a Ronaldo Nazario Darima all day long, because before he buries that ball in the back of the net, I'm confident he's going to dribble past somebody. I prefer a Diego Armando Maradona. I never got the chance to watch him beyond the clips that I've seen. I prefer a Pele. I never got the chance to watch him, but I'd go with him any day. Flair all day long. A striker like Fernando Torres, he wasn't physically dominant. He was a skillful player who knew where the back of the net is. Sergio Kun Aguero, maybe he struck a balance between being physical and being good with his feet. But those kinds of players, with my heart, all day long. Because before they put it in the back of the net, they're bound to offer us something. They are bound to offer us something to remember beyond just the goal. So Ronaldo Nazario Darima, senior for me. Okay. How? The best strikers are quick and skilled, are quick and silky. I mean, like I said, my appreciation of the game comes from the backdrop of appreciating the flair of it, the beauty of it, before we get to the goal itself. I understand that the goal is the most important statistic of the game, but before we get there, I don't know if you've chanced yourself upon seeing any clips from futsal. I've not been lucky enough to watch full games of futsal, but I've been lucky enough to watch clips from futsal. My God, I think I could watch them all day long because the level of skill that is in those games, Jesus Christ. I mean, before you get to enjoy the goal, if you have any sides to choose, the kinds of things that people do to each other in futsal, wow. Amazing. Simply amazing. It's like the rebirth of football itself, Okay. Madueke should have taken the penalty. That's the example I just gave you. Reflect yourself back on Euro 2020 that was played in 2021. 3 forward players in Saka, Sancho, and Marcus Rashford missed penalties for England. I cannot hold it against them. But they miss just because any other player can miss a penalty. So, unless you're saying it is better for a forward player to miss than a defender, but in what world is it better if they are both misses? Agree to disagree, but that's just my opinion about it. If the penalty is scored by a defender, it doesn't matter. If it is scored by a striker, it doesn't matter. All it matters is that the ball hits the back of the net. If both of them miss, they both missed. And that's what history will show. History will show. So they miss penalties. Okay. Raymond Kangumba is the same comment that we reviewed yesterday about Ewin Jacquin, Ade Ezazori, Nusa, Victor Munoz, and Jonathan David about your wish list for transfers for Newcastle. You say, sir, Hakimi is a fullback. I mean, there are a few centre back expectations who are good penalty takers, but many centre backs tend to clear the ball while taking a penalty. But yes, there are exceptions. Okay. Is there any information to do? Is there any information do you have regarding Pedri? Regarding Pedri, not really. He's not fallen on my radar. For as far as I'm concerned, he's quite healthy and okay, ready to go for the World Cup, unless something has happened that I'm yet to find out as of this the time of this broadcast. But in case I do, be sure I'll be here to let you know. Adash, thank you so much. LFC says, yes, Robert, my brother, I'm back. Always a pleasure to have you back. LFC, can't stay long. Need to get to sleep. I have I'm really sorry. Oh, I have a really sorry toothache and it's causing me a headache. Sorry about that. Wish you a quick recovery. Unlucky to Arsenal yesterday. Yeah, unlucky about that. You say you're sad about Konate. It is what it is. You all got to beat him farewell. And then you say goodbye, Robert, my brother. I'm going to bed now. And then you say hi. Thank you so much, LFC. LFC is a Liverpool fan, for those of you that are not aware. What do you think is the most important thing that a good defensive midfielder should have? For me, it's stamina, like Ramirez, Essien. A good defensive midfielder should have as the best attribute is game reading, in my humble opinion. If you can read the game really, really well, it matters less if you're a hard tackler, if you're not, what. One of the cleanest central midfielders that I've been blessed to watch has been Sergio Busquets. Players like Michael Carrick are players that really went about the midfield business. Players like Andrea Pirlo, really, really almost quietly. You may not even notice that they're in the game, and yet they're in there getting their job done. So for me, game reading is right up there. Yes, stamina is an important factor to have, but your game reading has to be top notch. I cannot have you having stamina and you're constantly misreading situations. You're constantly being late for the ball. You're constantly being late for a tackle. I cannot have that. So I am better off having you with good game reading skills. Saran says CDM must be strong, brave, have stamina, and either have a good passing range or interception. Yes, the interception, that's all the good, the game reading I'm talking about. If you have good game reading, you'll anticipate, therefore your interceptions will be good, your passing will be good because you can see the patterns of play long before others see them, So you have that sharpness of the mind. But I agree on the stamina part. I agree on the strength part and the brevity. But for me, good game reading would come as number one. And then stamina would be an addition, that bit of strength, because the players like Jorginho were not the strongest. Now, they were not the strongest on the pitch. They relied on their game intelligence, anticipating the game, good game reading, and having that good passing range. Sir, have you seen Rudy Gullit play? Generally asking, Rudy Gullit, Real Madrid. Who is your three favorite CDMs? Three favorite CDMs. Wow. That's a difficult question. That's a very difficult question. Because I've had the chance to watch a couple of them over the years. I've had the chance to watch a couple of them over the years. And I'm thinking to myself, Rudy Gullit? No, I did not watch Rudy Gullit. I did not watch him. I was mistaking him for the center back that played for Real Madrid. His name was what? I'm forgetting even the name. But in terms of favorite center backs, you say, sir, the 1999 Ballon d'Or winner, Rudy Gullit, the Dutch. Yeah. I've read about him. But I did not get the chance to watch him, unfortunately. I often tell the story of how, for me, football came very late in my life in terms of watching it on screen, as opposed to listening to it and maybe hearing of it in some respects. But just to get back to the question, Sarah says I'd go Fernandinho, Casemiro, and Yaya. I'd go Patrick Vieira. He will be one of them in no particular order. He will be one of them. Andre Pirlo. And Sergio Busquets. Yep. Maybe I'll go with those. That would be my pick of the three. Okay. Okay, Rio Dandy responded to Sarah Yanni's question, and he said his favorite are Ramirez, Kante, and Matthias. Matthias? Clarify more. Which Matthias? When you say Fernandinho, Casemiro, and Yaya Toure or Henderson was good box to box. Kante was also nice, but I don't like him anymore. Is it about Luther Matthias? I didn't want to insinuate because you could have been talking about a different Matthias. Okay, Yaya is a game. He never. Okay, I mean predominantly for me, when you say when you talk of central midfielders, I predispose myself to zeroing down to that holding midfielder, the one we call the holding midfielder, the number 6 traditionally. That's why I give you the other 3 names. When you expand it to include the 8s, I mean, it's still a difficult question nonetheless, but I appreciate all your choices, guys. For Jordan Anderson, no, for me, he would not even be in my top 5. I appreciate him, hard worker and etc, but not for me. Fernandinho, very good, risky tackler, in my opinion. Piero and Busquets were class, indeed. Okay, Adash says Rafinha is the best footballer, and it's sad no one is talking about his name. Well, Rafinha is very good. He was very good last season, but Barcelona decided to front Lamine Yamal ahead of Rafinha. That's just how big clubs operate. Remember, Lamine Yamal is young, exciting, Spanish, so they fronted him ahead of Rafinha. You remember when it came to all the talk about the Ballon d'Or last year, they made it about Lamine Yamal in as far as Spanish media was concerned. Like Rafinha had not even kicked a ball throughout the entire season. As unfortunate as it is what it is, basically. Okay. You say the best bowler right now is Bruno Fernandes, not even a question. Best bowler? That's your humble opinion. Sino Bueno comes with a huge laugh. Sino Bueno, you can laugh all you want, you still have red hair. Meanwhile, I did put that prompt in Gemini, and I don't want to even laugh. Once I put that prompt in Gemini, they brought me a skinny Chinese with slight mustache and a small beard, with a cross bag, wearing a black jacket, underneath it a hoodie, a watch on his wrist, blue jeans slightly folded with Adidas sneakers. I mean, Gemini made you look good. If that is how you look, it made you look good. And it's not as bad as I figured it would be. The red hair is nothing now. It is something. It is something. Patrick Dogu, what does Patrick Dogu have to do with anything? Are you saying he's your best bowler, Patrick Dogu? Okay, Bruno Fernandes, I've said this. He's the best and most effective 10 there is right now when it comes to number 10s within the game. Okay. Daniel Daniel Berry's Sports Highlights says, hello, chat, happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you too. Riordan says, sir, I've had people really consider George Weah as their national treasure in Liberia. Is this true? Yeah, I mean, he's the best talent they've ever produced. Won the Balado in 1995. So he's the best there is for them. Abdul Wahid, always a pleasure, my brother, to have you around. I hope you've had a wonderful day today. So, in terms of Bruno Fernandes being the best bowler, are you saying best bowler across the entire pitch or in his role? Because in his role, I'll agree. Being the best bowler across board, that will be over exaggerated for me. So, do you think Ipswich Town converts can do anything next season in the Premier League? I mean, if Kian McKenna learned from his mistakes from the 2023, from the 2024-2025 season, if he learned his mistakes, you see, the challenge with majority of teams that get promoted is thinking that they're going to stick with that sort of brand of football that they play in the Championship. Realist, they do not have the players to match the level of the Premier League. So you must adjust something for it to work for you. You must adjust something for it to work for you. So I remember he loves to play the entertaining football. You remember Vincent Kompany with Burnley? They played good football. They just didn't score enough and conceded in plenty. So they ended up being relegated. What good is it you playing very good football if it does not get you results to save you from relegation throughout the entire campaign? It doesn't make sense. Play to win. Entertain us later. If you prioritize entertaining us and keep losing, we'll enjoy the game for what it is, but we'll also be enjoying your opponent scoring against you. And before we know it, it's 8 games left to play, and you're 19th or 20th on the Premier League log. And you're staring down the bar of relegation. So where things have gone, the ends justify the means. Play, accumulate your 45 points, and then you'll get to showcase us whatever brand of football you may want to show us. Okay. So with Ipswich Town and Kian McKenna, unless he learned from his mistakes in the first season, if he take the example of Daniel Fakir this season. Daniel Fakir likes to play that expansive, beautiful brand of football, but he realized it was not going to work. And fair for him, it was still early on in the season, not very early, but almost midway the season. And he changed it. He changed to a back three, and he, excuse me, and he packed his midfield, and it all worked out. They started getting results on board. Wherever they could not win, they scrapped out a point and survived relegation. So next season they will be playing in the Premier League. That's what it is all about. I mean, Leeds was one of the strongholds of English football. One of the strongholds of English football. You go back to, was it 2000? And they were playing in the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. So really, we're talking about a team, a club that has this history. You go back to that season of 2000 and 2001. You know, they're playing in the semi-finals against Valencia. They lost out to Valencia, and Valencia made it to the final and lost out to Bayern Munich 5-4 on penalties after a 1-all draw. You know, so they ought to learn from their mistakes. Sino Bueno says, my two cousins won't come out of the room because I will just laugh at them when I see their faces. Your cousins just do not have, just do not know how it's done. You know, football is funny. Rio Dandy says, who do you think is the best player right now? The best player right now. I'll go with Kivichak Vasqueria. He's brilliant. He's a joy to watch. Do you take only one name, please? Oh, you wanted only one name? Vitinha is the unsung hero. Yeah, brilliant player. One of I said this last season that for me I wouldn't have been surprised if Vitinha won the Ballon d'Or. By the way, I wouldn't have been surprised. In fact, it would have been well deserved. But because the modern day accolades and the game itself has been framed to goals and assists, that's why forward players are constantly winning these accolades. I understand that the goal is the most important statistic of the game, but that is to demystify the roles played by all these other players on the pitch. You know, because I mean, if my role is as a goalkeeper is to stop goals from going in, if I achieve that, how then do you tell me the other player is better than me just because they executed their role as well? You know, like okay. Here's the thing. I do not want to use wrong examples because some people will make the argument of a role in an organization of how the CEO is more important than the cleaner. I understand that sort of school of thought. But if you bring that analogy to the table, we can put out the cleaner and the organization will still run. Put out the goalkeeper and we see. You know? So there's this sort of disrespect to these other roles. If forwards could play the game alone, we can feel them and see what happens. So we must acknowledge that it is a team sport. And some players will stand out throughout the entire season, give you consistent performances across board, and their roles, they're defenders, they're central midfielders, but because they do not have these numbers in terms of goals and assists, they get overlooked for, some of these accolades. And it's very painful for me. Because the last time a midfielder won the Ballon d'Or was 2024. That is Rodri. Prior to that, you have to take yourself back to 2006 when Fabio Cannavaro wins it. So in what world is that supposed to be fair? In what world is that supposed to be fair? I do not like it that way. So then you go back, okay, look at Modric. It wasn't about his goals and assists that won him the Ballon d'Or, But for all the other players, Andrei Shevchenko, Pavlo Nedved, most of them are forwards. Most of them are forwards. So, anyways, okay, just a point of correction to let me see. I don't know if I can find that comment. Oh, there's something I needed us to correct. It was a comment from somebody regarding okay, I can't find the comment quickly, but there's something I wanted us to correct. Oh, I think it's here. It was regarding. I think it was regarding Rudy Gullit. You said he won the 1988 Ballon d'Or. I think it was 1987. I think it was 1987. Because 88 was Marco van Basten. Yeah, Marco van Basten, 88 and 89. So it was 87. Okay, that's what I wanted us to correct. Briefly, through some of your other comments. Okay, just go to know US beat Senegal in friendlies 3-2. Okay, I've not been keeping up on friendlies really, and I do not intend to do so. Maybe in terms of just passively for the results, but in terms of watching the friendlies, nah. I know for a fact that countries are trying out their players and having warm-ups for the World Cup. I do not know why people are not recovering from Rafinha ranked 5th in last year's Ballon d'Or. I mean, in the next 3 years, people will forget his rank that season and will only remember the winner. That's true, but I mean, I found that rank really, really, it was low. Let's be honest, it was low. Vairati Kohli, Team RCB won. Okay, congratulations to Vairati Kohli. Okay, thank you so much, AXM22 for that. I mean, this is what has happened in the past. I think you are responding to the idea of awarding, players for goals and assists. Stop spamming. It's a football channel. Cricket is the next thing, guys. I have no qualms with cricket. Like I've told you before, I'm open to learning the dynamics of cricket and having an appreciation for it. I have no problems with it. That's why I keep saying that some of the early people that supported me on this channel were majority from India, where cricket is the thing, is the biggest sport, Okay. AXM said bye. Okay. Now, we do not talk about cricket here. No, watch it. Thank you. Scott 1992 says, you'll never sing that. You'll never sing the champions of Europe. You'll never sing that. Well, I mean, Arsenal have lost 5 consecutive European finals. 2026, 2019, you had 2000 against Galatasaray, UEFA Cup. 95, I think they lost the Cup Winners' Cup. There's another in between that I'm forgetting. There's another in between because they won the Cup Winners' Cup in 94. In 94. So I do not remember the other one that's the other one that they lost. AMX, what is racist? What did he say? So they beat Parma by a goal to nil in 1994 for the Cup Winners' Cup. But I know they've lost 5 consecutive finals. Okay, let me go through it all as well. Okay. Living respectfully. Amex, it's okay to love cricket. I have no problem with cricket. And by the way, thank you so much for having chosen to be part of the broadcast. I respect your appreciation for cricket as a game of football. Sorry, as a game or as a sport. I just do not know enough about cricket to indulge you in the conversation. Otherwise, I'll be mumbling about it. I'll tell you about Ben Stokes, who you may not particularly be interested in because I've seen him with the England national team. And if I'm lucky to remember any other name in cricket, I may mention it just for the sake of mentioning it. But I do not know much about cricket. I'm open to learning about it when it comes to the wickets, the batting, the throws, the catch, and etc. etc. I'm open to learning it, and appreciating it for the sport that it is, because I know it attracts a lot of people in West Indies, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in India, etc., in Sri Lanka, in South Africa, because they're good cricketers. I respect it for what it is. So please, I do not feel hard done by, but for the channel, predominantly it's football. That's the sport I enjoy the most. So I get the opportunity to interact with people that have an appreciation of football as well, the most. Okay. Let me see. Where did I? Okay. But cricket is the next big thing, guys. I mean, I can't argue against that. Like I said, my knowledge about it is very limited. When you say next big thing, are you saying it's going to be the most popular sport in the world in the coming years? In a way. Okay. Sino Bueno says, nope, never was and never will. Jesus. Sino Bueno, you're enjoying this too much. Anyway, I'm sure people are still enjoying your red hair. Nini, Jesus Christ. Is it Neni? Neni, you say, do you think Nigias are quite expensive now? Nigias? I've never bought any, so I wouldn't know. Respect for you, man, but no respect for the other viewers. We should respect each other's spots. Okay. Prashan says London will forever be blue. Okay. Rio Dandy, that's racist. What is racist? I don't think it's racist. Somebody expressing that their opinion about cricket is not racism. Let's not mix things here. AXM 22. It's not racist. Okay, football is already so exponentially growing that we won't catch up to cricket. Okay. Which team beat Arsenal in the 120th minute? I forgot. It was a long volley. Which team beat Arsenal with a long volley? Is that like in recent times or in many, many years ago? I'm struggling to remember. I'm struggling to remember as well. Virati Kohli, the god of cricket. Okay. Wow, great knowledge you have about cricket, sir. It's not great knowledge just because I mentioned Ben Stokes. No. I remember when they were playing the T20 cricket World Cup, the controversy involving Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India. How Pakistan did not want to play the game with India, etc., etc. Anyways, but I would appreciate AXM if you can constantly come and give us updates in good summary from the world of cricket to say this is the update about cricket, this is what is happening, maybe T20 World Cup qualifiers, etc., and in summary, in good, well packaged, as opposed to fronting just one name. I for one, I would appreciate it, even though it's not a cup of tea for everyone. Okay. Yes, Dandy, and it will forever be blue. Okay, AXM, even I watch cricket, stop spamming in a football channel. Yes, Prash, okay. Africa continent is also an unsung hero in the whole world, still a mysterious continent. There's a lot that is not known about the African continent, particularly about in some circles in the white world and the wider world. And I do not know, by the way. I don't know if this is a problem, but for us going through school, we studied about other continents. not in the greatest of detail, but in bits. For example, we studied about maybe some of their life-changing projects. We studied about their bit of history, but people get asked about Africa, and people think it's a country. Jesus Christ! And I'm like, there's nowhere in class where you people are taught that there are multiple continents, and among them is Africa. That you have Africa as a continent, you have North America, you have South America, you have Europe, you have Asia, you have Australia. I mean, make it make sense. It's that simple. It's that simple. And then you don't need to know the breakdown of how many countries are in each of the continents, but at least you can know that. Sometimes I watch clips of people saying those things, and I'm like, you don't even have the basic general knowledge? Really? But also the beauty of it is that social media has sort of opened up the world to different levels of knowledge to educate these people that, look here, Africa is a continent with about 53 countries. So the newest being South Sudan. You can go learn about Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, South Africa, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Niger, Nigeria, Morocco, Egypt, Sudan, etc., etc. Somalia, Somaliland, Djibouti, that sort of thing. So, anyways, okay. Okay, Sinobueno is saying 1995, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. The one against Zaragoza, Arsenal lost to Zaragoza, Rio Zaragoza, by 2-1. So does Uganda have any European club academies? No. It doesn't have any European best academies, but there's a number of them. One of the recently developed popular academies is called El Cambio. It's located within the central part of the country in a district called Masaka. You have Edgar's as one of the academies. You have, is it Kampala Kids Club? You have, I'm trying to remember. You have Proline, a football academy. So the academies are there, but the popular ones are really, really few, and most of them located within the central region of the country. But there are no European-based academies. It's in Rwanda where they've had partnerships of PSG and Bayern Munich set up academies in Rwanda. Can you talk something about Indian football? Indian football, little known to me, apart from Sanil Chateri being the greatest ever Indian footballer. So very little known to me. Okay, Africa should be highly respected. People shouldn't neglect that continent. Africa is one of the reasons why our ecosystem, ecology, and even our earth is currently balanced. Very rich continent, naturally endowed, so much to see, so much to appreciate from the weather, from the wildlife, from the fauna, the lakes, rivers, climate, weather, its biodiversity is really, really, really broad. People love the apes, etc. Okay, sir, I've followed your channel for quite a long time. I feel you should do creator collaborations with other football podcasters. There are a lot of people who would like to have a collab. I mean, I'm open to collaborations with genuine people. I'm open to collaborations. For me personally, there are streaming tools that you use or to help you record some of this content, like StreamYard. I'm not yet in that space where I can subscribe to some of these tools. But in terms of collaborations, I'm really, really open to them. I remember there's one that I did, and I had hoped to collaborate with the creator, but they declined the collaboration because they did not appreciate the video quality of the content that we had shot. It was a bit darkish, and I respected that for what it was in a way. But it's really, really hard, by the way. It's been hard for me in that space to when you reach out to people and they're unresponsive to do collaborations. I remember at some point, was it early this year? Somebody reached out from Kenya and they were inviting me to do a collaboration on their channel. I gave them a day and they did not show up. So, but I'd appreciate that to collaborate with people and on their podcasts and etc. and vice versa. I think it would be a good thing to have a more balanced discussion and another voice. So it's something that I constantly think about, and as and of when it is really possible, you'll be the first to know. Okay, Sino Bueno says, without Africans, we wouldn't have cool/funny proverbs. Like which funny proverb? He who sleeps with an itchy AWS wakes up with smelly fingers. It's an African proverb. You can look that up. At least I've given you one funny one. I know a Nigerian who does similar podcasts like you. He's a wholesome person, genuinely. Okay. I want to I want to start sourcing out for those kinds of people who can help me do those collabs, and we see how things go. Are you Japanese? I'm not Japanese, but I can say Ohayo gozaimasu. Thank you so much, Liam. Liam Cameroon Boxing Security. Are there Japanese that are dark skinned? Not that I've ever seen. So it's a bit of a strange question to be asked of me. Okay. I think we've gone through it all. I think we've gone through it all. In as far as what was expected of us today. So Juventus will be making will be renewing their pursuit of Rando Colomwani from PSG following his loan spell with Tottenham Hotspur. So looks like that interest is not going anywhere any soon. They've had long-term interests. Yeah. Video assistant referees will have new powers to intervene at this summer's World Cup if fouls are committed immediately before the ball is in play. Immediately before the ball is in play at a set piece, the International Football Association Board has announced. Okay. We'll just have to wait and see. Okay. Jesus Christ, that AI guy. Anyways, okay, I think I've gone through it all. Thank you so much, Liam. Thank you so much. Real Dandy, you say, sir, but it is completely upon you if you want to do collabs. In the end, the decision ends with you. I appreciate it's my decision. But like I said, I reach out to people, not for just collaborations, but for interviews. I don't know for how long you followed the channel, but if you go under the video section, there's a couple of interviews. They may be very sporadic, but there's a couple of them. Now, out of every 10 persons that you reach out for an interview, only you're happy if even one responds. And just because they respond doesn't mean they're going to grant you the interview. So that's just the nature of space. And then other people that I've reached out to say, guys, come let's talk football on the channel. Others are just not confident about their command of the English language. It's not that they cannot speak it. I know for a fact that they can speak it, really well. They're just not confident because they've not been put on the spot before or been put before the cameras to do it, So we'll have to wait and see. Okay. Thank you. I had a great time. Real. Bye. Thank you so much, Real Dandy. Thank you so much, Liam Cameron. Sino Bueno, it's always a pleasure. AXM22, thank you so much. Prashan, thank you so much. Sarayad, it was a pleasure. Adash, thank you so much. Daniel, Beris Sports Highlights, thank you so much. LFC, thank you so much for having been part of tonight's conversation. SSB, thank you so much. 33 Verstappen, always a pleasure to have you. Summer Banks, thank you so much for your dedication to having been part of tonight's conversation. The one thing that I wanted to talk about is a question that I was asked about yesterday by our colleague Viola, and it was regarding the World Sevens of Football, the sort of new tournament for women football of 7-a-side. They play 7 players on either side on half the pitch. You remember the pitch is 100 yards by 50, so they play on half of it. And the goals are smaller. It's 15 minutes for each half, apparently. And Chelsea are the reigning champions who won 2026 edition with the beat Man United, I think 6-5. There, it's more like the futsal version on the pitch, kind of on the grass, kind of. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, guys. I wish you a blessed night and a blessed new month since it's already the 1st of June, 2026. Be blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now. Oh, somebody says Kante. Is it Kante or Kat? I'm signing out when somebody... Hunter. Hunter says Kante. What about Kante? Anyways, you joined us a bit late, but my humble request will be, please subscribe to the channel, like the broadcast, and you'll catch us next time. Tomorrow morning at 9, we'll be back, provided we have power. Power is a critical piece of this. If there's power, we'll do the broadcast. If you do not see me be part, if you do not see me in front of the camera tomorrow morning, blame it on UEDCL. But I'm hoping, against hope, that all will be okay and that we'll be here to talk more things football as we start to look towards the World Cup, for which preparations are in high gear for most teams. Bye-bye for now.